Welcome to Making Your Miles Count Production, an educational program to all Canadian lease owner-operators with your host, Robert Scaper.
Well, how could we possibly have a discussion on IT without at least talking a bit about AI and all these acronyms? By the way, IT stands for information technology. There's some people who may not know what that even means. And AI, obviously, or if you want to know, is artificial intelligence. And it's not referring, to Uncle Louie at your Christmas dinner. But artificial intelligence is it's lately been a little bit of a scary word. It's like a lot of people have been worried due to, it's going to take over the world like Skynet, that's the one of Terminator, right?
Yeah.
Which is the one that Elon Musk... Starlink. I always get those two confused. Maybe they're the same thing in the end.
You never know.
In theory, it would be the same thing. Anyway, we're off on a rabbit trail here. But artificial intelligence, we are dealing in our firm. Do we call it artificial intelligence, or is it just straight machine learning, or is it the same thing?
Well, it's technically deep learning, but that's a subset of machine learning, which is a subset of AI.
All right. Okay.
We should probably define what some of these things mean, right?
Here, go ahead. Somebody better do it other than me.
So artificial intelligence is, exactly that. It's the idea that the computer is making decisions. And this could be very simple decisions like, when to turn your thermostat on and off. So that's always the most basic example, right?
Yeah.
Is you have a thermostat, it detects the temperature, it has to decide, should I turn the furnace on and off, or should I turn the air conditioning on and off? Very, very simple way of the machine making decisions.
Yeah.
And so at a very, very basic level, that's one of the most, basic types of AI would be your thermostat turning your AC on and off, because it has a sensor, it's deciding what to do, and it's making a choice.
Well, it's not very threatening.
No, it's not. And it's
very
it's very simple. The old-fashioned way of doing that is when you have a fan and you manually turn it on and off. So now here we have the device replacing a human job, and it makes your life much easier because now you don't have to turn your fan on and off. It does it for you.
Yeah, and even more interesting, we think of AI as this big buzzword nowadays. The ideas have been around since the late 1950s, and we've been using some form of AI already for many, many years. It's just, I guess in many ways it was done so that you wouldn't know it, or, you didn't think about it, but it's been around
If you don't use
time.
the word AI, then it actually, it's just convenient.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
This is not intimidating at all. Some machine is doing something for us that we find very boring or tedious to do.
Well, the difference now is that the machine can make much more complicated decisions than before.
Yeah.
Right? In the past, it was, it looks at the temperature, and that's a very simple choice to make.
Sure.
But now we can do things that are much, much more complicated.
One of the things that I'd like to talk a little bit about this one, what we're designing now, and actually we have designed already, is when a client sends in a few bank statements from their bank, and we need that in order to complete bank reconciliations and complete their corporate returns and the like. And they send us, say, January, March, and April, and we're missing February. Well, there's a whole bunch of things, choices and decisions that we make. A human brain makes it so quickly, so fast, that we don't even recognize that it's a choice. I said the words January and March, and so we're obviously missing February. But there's a whole bunch of sub-questions you have to answer behind that. Like that, for instance, say a Caisse Populaire or a credit union may have their bank statement end on the end of the month, like say February 28th or 29th, whatever it is. Whereas you go to a charter bank, say Royal Bank, where they have their month end actually, 22nd, 23rd, 24th or something like that. It's not consistent between one bank and another bank. Mm-hmm. And those kind of questions, each time, if we're scanning in, we receive a bank statement, and then our computer has to read. First of all, it has to recognize that it is, say, a Royal Bank, has to recognize a whole stream of different, what do they call that? Questions. Like a logo and a date and a, what do they call it? Parameters.
Parameters.
Yeah.
How many are there in the banks? How many have we been using?
Well, a lot of it's been, as far as text, it's been phone numbers. In that sense, it's been 10, 20 of them. Oh, okay. Phone numbers, email.
So in other words, we get one page a bank statement, and the computer looks for whatever, something like 20 things.
Sure.
If it's like a fingerprint or whatever, and if it matches 18 or 19 or whatever we say, then we say, hey, this is a Royal Bank statement.
Right. And it's the same thing you would do when you look at a bank statement.
Yeah.
How would you recognize a bank statement? Well, you'd look for the name of the bank. That'd be one of the more obvious things. And then we start with that and we kind of go through the list.
When you deal with images, logos are the obvious choice. They are they're basically the main thing. Like if you don't have a logo on there, it's very difficult to start recognizing banks.
The same way a person does. A person looks for the logo, right? If you can't find the logo because you're on page 2 and it doesn't have a logo, okay, what do you look for next?
Well, then you read the name.
Or you look for a page number. The first page is page 1.
Sure.
The 7 has a 2 on there, so this must be page 2.
So there's a whole bunch of what ifs and what ifs, and then yes, no answers, basically, going through the entire thing, and you list it, and it's all processing hundreds of thousands of these things. But our personal brains do that at such a speed we don't even recognize that it's even doing it. But a programmer has to do these things. We have to split them up into all of these different fields, and then one by one write program for each individual criteria for choosing just a bank statement. There's a lot of work that's involved.
There's a lot of different choices, right?
Yeah.
So there's not only you have to figure out what type of bank statement this is, then you have to start pulling the information from it. And so now you have to be able to figure out, what's the date of the bank statement. And dates are very complicated.
They are, because there's, I think we're dealing with at least 12 or 13 different formats right now. And then add French to, that's probably closer to 15 or 20.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I like year, month, date.
Yeah.
Because that's a numerical that you can convert to.
And if you create a bunch of folders with year, month, date, everything's sorted in order. Yeah. But if you do it in month, day, year, now suddenly on your computer when you try to sort it by date, it's mixed up, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then
so you have to have a converter to say, hey, this is this format. This is month, year, or month, day, year, and then you have to actually convert it. If you actually want to sort something, you have to put it into a category and then sort it. So there's a whole bunch of steps.
For that. And the worst part is when the year is only, like, everything is numbers and the year is only 2 digits, then suddenly you have to start counting. Like you have to look at different statements to see which number goes up by 1, because otherwise you don't know which one is the month and day and year.
Well, that's just it, right? So if your date is 01, 02, 03, so what is that?
Yeah.
Is that January 2nd, 2003?
And then some abbreviate, some don't.
Or is that the 1st of February, 2003? Or is it 2003?
Yeah.
It could be any one of these.
So all those individual choices, our brains can do lightning fast, and we make assumptions that, hey, well, it's like, come on, it's really easy.
Yeah.
But in effect, actually to convert our choices into yes, no answers, like that's what programming is. If it can recognize something, then you can sort it and put it in the right field and make yes or no answers for those things as well. That's a long, tedious process.
Well, and having the machine make decisions that a person makes is not very complicated. What's complicated is trying to figure out what decisions the person is making.
Yeah.
True. Yeah.
Once you understand the logic behind it, implementing it's not very hard. It's trying to figure that out first is where it's more complicated.
Yeah. I've done a little bit of just contemplating about personal financial management, for instance. How do people make financial choices for themselves personally? And there are people who make ginormous leaps and not think through all the processes for it. It would be greatly beneficial if some people would be more, computer program in mind and actually think through what are they recognizing in order to get to where they're going. Generally, in the conclusion is you find out that it's more of an emotional decision rather than a logical sequence. Not to refer back to Dave Ramsey, but Dave Ramsey, that's one of the reasons why he talks about finances being more emotional sometimes than it is logical. But in working with AI and the ability to sort things, organize things, and make choices and decisions based on the information that a computer can generate and organize, to call it artificial intelligence and be afraid of that is probably, it's an overstatement. It's not really fair, because our brains do things like that all the time too. If we were just completely logical minded, we would have no problem. But there's too much emotion involved in things. Like if we all thought like Spock did, we probably would have way less conflicts in this world. But it's not. A lot of it is emotional. And that's to attach fear that the world is going to be taken over by AI. It's not the actual programming that's the problem. It may be some of the formulas that are applied to the programming that might skew things. But I think probably one of the biggest things that as society we have to accept is we have to take personal responsibility for what we believe and what we don't believe. And that means we have to learn how to discern what is true and what is false. We are inundated with unbelievable amount of things on the internet, and who knows whether it's true or not. There was a game show even that came out with stuff. Okay, this is on the internet. Is it true or is it made up? The only thing I remember was there was a guy with a chicken with a head cut off, and the chicken stayed alive for three more years without a head. And I mean, is funny, but it was on the internet, and people were believing this. That, hey, wait a minute, look at this. He fed the chicken through this hole or whatever. And it's just a total fabrication, of course. But trying to determine what is truth and what is not truth, and it's a muscle to try and figure out, is this actually true or is this false? One thing, and we were talking about this the other day, if AI, like in Google, if we ask a question and it only gives us a parameter of 20 things, and those 20 things are skewed to one direction, then the question is that because of the programming or is it because of the internet itself? What's that thing? ChatGPT.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. If someone would put ChatGPT to my articles or something, somebody did that the other day. Somebody?
Yeah.
It was a very narrow kind of a reflection of what I've written over the last 15 years. Well, that's cool. But what if there is 1,000 robots pretending to be me, saying this is a quote from Robert Scaper, and now it's out on the internet and they flood it everywhere? Well, that would totally skew ChatGPT on me. And so we have to actually go to the source and actually really discern, okay, is this realistic or is it not?
So ChatGPT is interesting because if you ask it a question, when it responds, it will give you its sources. So you can see where it got this information from. And one time I asked it a question and its sources were my own website.
Oh,
which was kind of cool to see that it was, using me as a reference. But at the same time, it's like, well, if it's using me, it's using other people just like me. And it's like, that might not be a good thing.
Yeah.
Because it's just repeating information that it's given. And so it can only ever be as accurate as the information that has trained it.
Can artificial intelligence have critical thinking skills?
Can it have critical thinking skills? Not really. Not really. It's never going to create something new. It's only going to be able to use the information that it's been given to answer questions.
Okay, maybe.
But with generative AI, you can generate new things, but it is very much the way it's trained on. But it is, in that sense, it is somewhat unpredictable because you do not know what it is going to generate. But it is a bit of a philosophical question too, because
I guess
what
to
is
some
critical
degree, I guess
thinking?
I would have to explain what critical thinking is.
So here's a question. Okay, so say you have a bunch of candle makers, right? And so this AI is an expert on candles, and what it's doing is it's designing candles for you because that's what it's programmed to do, and it's learning about candles based on other candles that have been made. But it's never going to invent a light bulb. It can't do that. That is something that at this point in time, only a human mind could come up with. This whole entire new concept. And I don't think AI at this point, even whether it's machine learning or it's been programmed in some other way, I don't think it has the ability to come up with entirely new concepts.
Okay,
certainly
but
not useful ones anyway.
Yeah.
When I say, can AI create critical thinking? I guess when I was thinking about that, I'm thinking, can it determine whether something is a lie or not?
Sure, if you tell it what a lie is. But now the problem is that you've told it what a lie is, and if you lied to it when you told it that, now suddenly it's going to be telling you all the wrong answers.
Because by very definition, any of these, especially the models we're training to for recognizing documents, is the only way it knows what document it is by having fed it many of those documents. And same thing with lie or not lie, you would have to have if you had 1 million documents and you could label it, this is lie, not lie, then
Okay.
So you
let's
train
say-
it.
So if you have a whole bunch of robots that say water boils at 120 degrees Celsius, okay?
Yeah.
And you just fill the internet with it, and you say, okay, what temperature does water boil at? Will it give, 92% says it boils at 100, and 8% says at 120? Or does it give you some sort of a skew in between there? And it's now going to be 104 degrees?
Well, that depends on the AI model that you're training. So
Yeah.
I guess one example would be we have 100,000 documents that have been sorted as bank statements and credit cards. And one of the things we've been tempted to do is train AI based on all these documents that we have sorted. Because we have all this good information, all this training data, we could use it to train the AI to understand what document is what type. The problem is now that we're relying on the hope that everyone that sorted documents sorted it correctly.
Oh, yeah.
And what if they didn't? What if, they sorted a bunch of bank statements as credit card statements? Then you
vice
would be
versa.
feeding it faulty information.
Yeah.
and then it'll perform like poorly, or
Yeah,
it'll
yeah.
predict accurately based on what you've given it.
Yeah. It'll perform great based on the information you gave it, but that
Yeah.
information is not correct.
It'll
Exactly.
perform accurately based on the information you give it,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
inaccurately maybe in truth.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
in other words, we still, in the end, we should never give up on discerning or saying, does this make common sense? Is this is reasonable in logic?
In many ways, it's like training a child. That it's ultimately that's what it is. What you train it to do
Yeah.
is kind of, I guess, what you get to some degree.
yeah, exactly.
Well, this is very interesting. I don't find this scary. Why would people find this scary?
I guess one thing would be what people think bad people will do with it, but ultimately it's the bad people and not so much the.
Well, I think a big part of it, if you look back at the whole Y2K scare where, all the technology was going to fail. And a lot of that was people not understanding how.
Or the movie Terminator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of that was people not understanding how the technology worked and what were the issues and how to fix them. And I think with AI, it's kind of the same thing, right? People don't really understand what AI even means. And there's a lot of buzzwords, right? Like AI and machine learning. Well, these words have meaning. They're not something that's scary once you understand how it works.
Sure. There, I did want to make the point that in the trucking industry, there is a lot of AI out there, and a lot of companies are using AI, and it works relatively well.
Well, the best example is the maps that people use to figure out where they're going.
Yeah.
Like Google Maps, you give it a destination. Now it has to figure out what the best way to get there. Where's the construction, how to avoid it, how much traffic is there, and that's all AI powered.
In trucking, I mean, logistics is probably, I'm not the right person to really ask this question or answer it for sure. Is logistics uses AI probably more than anything. Maybe dispatches a little bit or something, but there's a lot of features. Like we were talking before, and generally the experience is there's in Canada there's 10,000 trucking companies, and the vast majority of them are very small, and they are anywhere from really good size is anywhere from 20 to 50. And the primary reason they cap out at 20 to 50 is because it all goes through one guy's brain. Generally speaking, one guy's brain, the owner of the company. The name on the side of the door, you put the guy's name on there. That's who it is. Because that one brain knows where every truck is, trailer is, keeps it all flowing, what the rates are, and the like. As soon as you get above that, you start needing more than one person. And then you got administration and stuff like this. But when you leap into hundreds and hundreds or thousands of trucks and trailers and pieces of equipment, you need something to manage it that it's not a team of 20 or 30 or 50 people. That's way too big of a... You need one system that can guide and direct and has access to know where every single piece of equipment is, where it's coming, where it's going, and the like. I remember reading a biography on Sam Walton, and one of the things that they did, this was many years back, this is in the 80s, is as an exercise, the CEO of the company, this was after Sam Walton was was on there, I believe. And what they did was they traced down every trailer that Walmart owned, and they manually did this. Okay, now this we have I think they had whatever 100, 200,000, however many thousands and thousands of trailers, and they one by one determined exactly where each trailer was. Well, it took them like almost, I don't know, weeks and months to track every single one of them down. And they say, yeah, okay, we're not missing any, or we're not this or that. Maybe they were missing something and they put it as a missing piece or something. They never stated that. But that exercise of being in control of every piece of equipment, all under one system, they still manually had to go in and out of there, but artificial intelligence manages all of that in an innocent way, like it very consistent and innocent. Well, this is where it is. If you have a GPS on every single piece, it can tell you exactly where everything is. And it's not in a human brain anymore. So one human brain now can manage 50,000 pieces of equipment rather than 150 or 200 or something like that. So it's very, very AI is well utilized, I believe, in the trucking industry. There's a huge rate of return on your investment, in my opinion, in AI and trucking. It's probably one of the best places for AI, in my opinion. But it's relatively simple. You got equipment, and it has to be different locations. It's not a huge amount of parameters. Trucking with AI, we have to embrace it. And even people like, if you're bumping down the road and you say, I don't want anything to do with AI, I'm old school. Look, we've been working with AI for a very long time.
Yeah.
The industry has been working with AI for decades, and it's just sped up. And the word being thrown around is a little bit more, I shouldn't say fear-mongering, but I don't know why suddenly it turned. I think probably just Elon Musk saying that it's the number one threat to humanity or something like that. I think he was just trying to promote his new business. I don't know. He's a very controversial character. There's some things I really appreciate about him. Others maybe not so much. But those are the characters that we live in. It's amazing that the higher level AI. There's probably only 50, 100, 200, maybe 1,000 people who are cutting edge at the really high level. Or that's my opinion. What do you think? Or do you think everybody can?
I mean, if you include the scientific community, like the researchers and everything, I mean, there's many thousands.
Okay. I guess everybody's dabbling in it.
Well,
if a small accounting firm is operating with it, we're at the stage where almost anybody can do it.
Well, I don't think we're aware of what all these companies are doing at this point.
Yeah.
Right. But automation is the big focus at this point in time with a lot of the larger corporations, and so they're probably most of the the top companies will probably all be investigating AI at this point.
I mean, I know IBM, Google, Facebook, and Microsoft are. Microsoft invested like $10 billion beginning of this year, and I would imagine they would have more than 1,000 people just themselves working on that. And
that $10 billion was just with OpenAI, right?
Right.
So we don't know what else they've invested in that's AI related.
Because they've been integrating it into their entire all their products.
Well, even Skype now, you want to go have a conversation, you're bored, go talk to the AI. It's right there. You can ask it questions.
And then even like Facebook, like those advertisements those annoying advertisements, like they're very directed at you, and they've been openly they've been at least working with AI since 2013 already. Like, and before that, like, I mean, a lot of the machine learning has already been way before that, but like it's been behind the scenes. I know Twitter too, like with monitoring all the tweets and whatnot. I know they're definitely using AI, and so I think almost all those bigger companies do, and for many years already. Like it's not even it's been affecting you for a long time without knowing it.
When you talking scalability of communication of billions of people, you can't do that by people. It all has to be done by AI.
Especially things where decisions have to be made, right?
Yeah.
So like content moderation. So there's tweets or Facebook posts that against your go against your terms, how do you decide what you allow and what you don't?
Yeah.
And so AI is the simplest way of doing it, because now you can apply that to every time someone posts something, have your AI look at it and decide, is this something we like or is this something we don't? And so you can do it very quickly and very efficiently. The problem is that now this thing does what you've trained it to do, and you may have some users that don't like that.
Yeah. We talked about this in a different segment where we had a situation pre-pandemic. Actually, I was talking about it in my thesis even in 1996, where people would sign digitally, and the entire process, everything from shipper to receiver to sending out the checks, deposit, the whole thing is all automated. And it's great. It's a great concept, even in 1996. But when I was talking to carriers, even in 1998 at that point, they said, yeah, but the receivers won't accept anything, won't process anything unless there's actually ink on the paper, and that's the only thing that they'll do. So digital doesn't help anything. So the people put a stop to it back in 1996. Well, and that continued on for quite a while. There's more and more people who are using digital. But then the pandemic came along, and bam, everybody then is digital. Nobody was doing ink anymore, or very, very few anyway. And they said, well, now it's digital, everything is fine. Then the pandemic has passed, and everything's open up again. And suddenly we have people who wanted ink before now want ink again. So just because, technology leaps and it looks as if everything is fine, if enough people say nope, then the whole thing is gone again.
Yeah.
And so it's not a one-way door that you go through with AI, or actually any kind of process or management thing. It has to be upkept, and it has to stick with the people. It was an interesting. I was talking with Alan today, and he was saying that Bank of Canada came out with a study. They did a very large study in Canada, and they were talking about cryptocurrency. He says, "Is Canada? We're all ready to do cryptocurrency. Are the Canadians actually, are we ready to do it? Because they are ready to implement cryptocurrency." They do this study, and they find that no, Canadians do not want cryptocurrency. There's not, and they said if the people are not going to accept it, there's no way we're going to implement it. So they shelved it in the back. Well, it was not just that study that did that, but you look at Gen Zs, like the really young people. They're using more cash than the us older generations. They stopped using credit cards a long time ago, and they're using actual physical cash more than the previous generation. And in their phones, they are using less and less apps. They're now retro coming out with these flip phones or whatever. So if society doesn't accept what AI is pushing, it will just fall flat. So the people who are really in the driver's seat are the collective people of the country or of the world. Even if everybody else in the world does something, that doesn't necessarily mean that Canada has to. It's still a collective body. And in my opinion, when it comes to too much influence of AI or anything like that, probably the country that has the most amount of heels in the dirt is not Canada. It's probably the United States. We are way more advanced technology in some regards than some places in the States, though there's some real hotspots of high technology in the States. But generally, as a whole entire country, I mean, we use debit cards here for 10 years. And you could go down the States, and what is that? It's either a MasterCard or credit card. What is a debit card? They didn't even know what a debit card was down in the States.
I know I went to Mall of America once, and you'd think, this is the place that should be up to date with technology, and I tried using my debit card. Yeah, no, you couldn't do it.
Yeah, so if the people don't accept it, well, it's just a little fear-mongering. I don't like to use the word fear-mongering, but I always feel like, you remember what do you call those things? whack-a-moles, you know?
Yeah.
Like the news are popping up, hey, here's a mirror, and we're supposed to whack it all the time. So all we're standing around doing is just whacking these moles. It's a total waste of time. And, I just leave it. I don't know. I'm getting a little bit ticked off at news organizations and trying to scare us into some corner so that we would buy something, whatever they're selling. I don't know. Something like that.
Yeah, and if you're really afraid of AI, I mean, all you have to do is try to implement an advanced AI system, and you'll discover there's just zero fear in there. It is just lots and lots of work and lots of trial and error by the end of the day, and tons of math, which we all don't understand.
Well, we went paperless in 2019.
Yeah.
We went from 400 plus filing folders down to 40. We still haven't got rid of all of them. Well, the vast majority of them we have, but some people just don't leave. They just still drop off paper. So it's never going to be 100% and learning how to work with paperless is you don't just snap your fingers and you're suddenly paperless. You don't snap your fingers and all of the clientele know exactly what to do.
You have to show people the advantage of it.
Yeah.
Right. And so once, AI provides people with real advantages, no matter what the industry, then people will start to switch and start to use it more.
Or they should.
And start to be okay with it. You'll always have those people that will refuse.
Yeah.
But I think the majority will jump along.
And even the ones that refuse now, I mean, like, I think most people don't know where it's used. That's the other thing. Like, almost all big businesses use it in the background for things they do. Like, I think all of us at some point or another throughout the day come in touch with it, whether we know it or not.
There's a lot of things. Yeah, exactly. In that point, I was just thinking about Walmart. I did a lot of research, like 15, 20 years on Walmart. And a lot of people didn't know that even 20 years ago, the shelves that contain all the Pampers and the Huggies and all of the diapers or whatever, that's not managed by Walmart. It's managed individually. You section off a certain section that is for Pampers, say, and Pampers has a report that says this location sold 3 bundles yesterday, and then they handle the inventory, so they send the stuff. Walmart doesn't. They just somebody ordered that. We put that. There's so much offloading of responsibility, and some of that is just done straight by AI, and that was 20 years ago.
So if you order from Amazon, Amazon's warehouses use AI to decide where they should store certain products. That way, when it's ordered and shipped, they can ship it as fast as possible because they order their stuff based on what's ordered the most. That way, they can get to shipping as quickly as they can.
Yeah. Have you ever seen some of those YouTube things where it talks about, it shows Amazon things? It looks like it looks like on this shelf, like it's a full shelf of stuff, but it's not like,
it's not
all razors.
No,
it's not all razors. Yeah. It's the efficiency of that product to being sent out or to the shelf itself. There's all sorts of formulas that goes on. So it's very random. To the natural human mind, we look at it and say, this is completely disorganized. Yeah. But today, it makes absolute sense.
Visually, it makes no sense.
Yeah, visually it does. Yeah.
But you order from Amazon and your stuff ships in 3 hours, so it works.
Yeah, it obviously works, yeah. But so AI is going to be a part of our life. Whether it pushes the button for a nuclear bomb, I think still, AI is not, in my opinion, AI is not the threat to the world that Elon says. I think he was just wanting a little bit of attention. Well, I don't know.
I don't.
Who
think,
am I to say that?
I don't think we'll ever need to worry about AI pushing the nuclear button.
No, I assume not. It's not going to be like whatever Skynet or what was the war game? Not war game. What was that? There was a movie back in the 80s that a guy hacked into a computer and he started thermonuclear war or whatever, and it was simulation, and then it became real or whatever, and whatever. It was a cool movie. It scared the living daylights out of my boss at the time, who was, he said, "Oh, this is real. We're all going to blow up." Nuclear is way more risky. That's the real threat in the world because it can actually do destruction. AI, it can do destruction, but it's not in the hands of insane people. If you get one, all it takes is one insane person who has access to a nuclear, and boy, does that change things. And so I still think that's personally, I think.
And the other thing is, I think we have to be very careful to call AI like a person. It's like it can. The funny thing is, it can take the role of a person, and it certainly does something to replace jobs and automation, all that. But by the end of the day, it's not really a person. It's just a tool. It's more like a nuclear weapon in a sense. It's a tool like that you can use, but at the same time, it can also press the button. So
Well,
it's a little bit of both. I
It's
guess.
also not designed by just one person, right? It's usually it's a collective. So you have a bunch of people working together to build this technology, and so it should never have the the behavior of one individual. It's always going to be the collective group.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, it takes more than one person to write the programs to take over the world.
And ultimately, it's whether we allow it to take it over or not is the other
yeah,
thing. Like,
exactly.
And we look at some of the AI that we're working on, and the AI isn't built by us, but the training data is, right? So we're using technology that's open source technology that's been worked on by many different people in different organizations,
Yeah.
and then we train it to do what we want or to solve the problems that we need solving.
Yeah, this is maybe as the last point here. I'd like to make. Explain what open source is versus non-open source. That's for somebody who doesn't know technology. That might baffle some.
Okay, so open source means that the program that you're using is open in the sense that you can redistribute it and you can access the code that wrote it. So you can do whatever you want with it. Okay? Now, open source doesn't mean that you can't sell it. You can still sell it, but you have to give the rights to use it in any way to the person that you give the application to. So they can edit the code, they can distribute the code, they can create their own program off of the code. And because of this, now what happens is, so you have an open source project, and now it's beneficial for other companies and organizations to improve it because they get to use it for free. They can look at the code, they can improve it themselves. And so it's beneficial to everybody because it's all available.
Okay, as opposed to back in the 80s and 90s, and you wanted some software into your computer, you went to Radio Shack. It's not even around anymore, is it? Well, it's of course now. But you go there and you buy an off-the-shelf program and you insert it, and you bought a license for one version or one program, and you put it onto your computer and you use it.
Right. Okay. So say you go and you buy Microsoft Office.
Yeah.
So you have Word and Excel, and say there's something you don't like about it. So you can write Microsoft a letter and hope that they change it. Good luck.
Yeah.
But if it's open source technology, now you have the ability to actually contribute to that
So
technology
you can go
yourself.
into the program itself,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
change it, customize it to what you want it,
Yeah.
and you could turn around, either sell it, give it away.
And
do
usually,
anything.
usually what happens is then you just, you have the project, and then you edit it, and then you submit the code back to the initial project. They implement it, so everyone else that uses it can now use that feature too.
Yeah. So it's
community
free.
development.
Yeah, it's community, and which is very much different than how software was originally developed, and it contrasts real software development where somebody's designing some great software and gonna sell it in the open market, as opposed to designing something great and everybody gets to use it and it's free. It's very controversial. There's some legislation down the States. It probably will never gain traction, but they're trying to close open source, and that I don't think is going to work. Do you know the stats on how much open source is taking over? I know originally this was a number of years back in the office building, in the office administration, just like from an accounting perspective, 90% of offices had Microsoft in it, and 10% some other program. Now it's no longer that. In offices, whatever, I think we looked at it was 67, 69%, or even less than that, depending on how you define
so
your...
so that's with Microsoft Windows, And so the operating system usage used to be 90% Windows, and that's no longer the case. It's around 70% now. Linux has grown. Google Chrome OS has also gone up now.
Yeah.
And Apple's definitely bigger than it was.
Yeah.
And just the entire open source community or open source software used in enterprises, it's like 66% in 2021 based on this one website anyway.
Yeah. So as open source, if we make the assumption that open source is slowly taking over more and more market share, that means software development is going to be, it's actually changing. It's as a developer or whatever, it's very much more individualized as opposed to mass market. I don't know, maybe.
So that's interesting because you look at a lot of the businesses now, and a lot of them use open source technology. Like even Facebook with React, that is open source.
Yeah.
But one industry that does not use open source is the banking industry. And so I know someone that works for a bank doing development, and they are not allowed to use anything open source.
Oh, really?
Which is very interesting. And that's probably why a lot of Canada's banking infrastructure is so very old and outdated, because they have to manually do everything themselves.
Wow. Now, the advantage, well, that is a disadvantage. But the only reason it works is we only have like half a dozen banks.
Yeah.
So if they implement something in Newfoundland, it's automatically implemented in Vancouver as well. So it's scalable from that regards, as opposed to, 10,000 plus banks in the United States.
So part of the argument that they have is that they say that open source is insecure because anyone can add code to it. Now, the argument in favor of open source is that it's very secure because anyone can add code to it.
Yeah.
Because now you have all these, people looking through it, and they can find bugs that you may not find with a smaller team.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can always just take it, and instead of putting it back in the community, you could just take it and use it for yourself and never actually put it back. And it's like jumpstart your something like that. And I'm just thinking another advantage of open source is, and it's also in favor of it, and that is, the software we're using to develop these models and everything, that's from Google. It's open source. We don't pay them to do it, and we don't pay Microsoft or anything. It's actually a way of what's the word again? I guess for corporations, it's
a way to give back to everybody else.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's beneficial to everyone that uses it.
Yeah, I guess when it comes to AI, another conclusion. I'll make my third conclusion now. But when it comes to conclusion, a driver bumping down the road and he needs his taxes being done. At some point in the future, whether it's 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, however, at some point, to answer the basic questions like what is this? What was this expense for? What was this for? At some point, a computer is going to be asking the question. At some point, is this your income? If you check everything all out, you press the button, and wham, your corporate return is completed. Send this, your GST is done. Press this, and that'll be done. And most of the interaction with their own business, they're not going to be interacting with a person. They're going to be interacting with a machine, really. And that's a leap. That's a leap that everybody has to deal with. I do not like, and how do I say this? I can't stand these answering machines. When you phone, press 1 for this, press 2 for that. If making your miles count, if you ever get that message that says press this for this, 1 for that, you know that I've died. Because I'm not putting that through, and the receptionist. I want people to talk to somebody if they want. That's critical. But there are some things that are going to be how do I say? It has to be managed by technology if you want to scale things on a very big scale. You just can't do something. That doesn't mean the receptionist will be, but it will. If we have a client's phone number, for instance, they phone in and they can phone in our 800 number, and we can actually route that directly to the workstation, who exactly does all of the paperwork that's involved with that. And so as opposed to go through a receptionist or something like that I understand. But people to people, it's and it's still going to, at some point in time, there's going to be less and less contact. The questions, the real interactions are going to be the real important stuff. All of the rest of the stuff is minor, but the real important stuff, maybe that is a person-to-person factor. There are some people who are just going to say, hey, I have no problem. I know exactly everything, where every penny is in my corporation, every expense and stuff. I'm okay with everything, and I'm okay with saying yes, and then off my corporate.
Well,
and I don't even talk to anybody.
If you really understand, the business practices, you should be able to just answer the questions.
Yeah.
It's when you don't know and you don't understand how things work where talking to a person is going to be more beneficial.
It alleviates. That's an emotional thing.
Yeah,
and that I understand. It's a matter of educating all the independent operators to fully and completely understand their business, so that they can answer the simple questions through AI as opposed to through a person, and have a higher level of service. But anyway. Mm-hmm. It's a fabulous topic. Is there anything that we missed? Well, probably everything when it comes to AI.
Yeah, it's a very broad topic.
Well, there's so many different things we could touch on.
Yeah,
it's something that you can't sum up in half an hour.
No, and AI, I've always viewed as AI. It's incremental steps, and it's not like boom, everything is all. You don't flick a switch and suddenly bam, everything. Because to grow machine learning, it's little baby steps, baby steps.
And the good example of that is in vehicles now, right? So your vehicle vehicles now are much more intelligent than they used to be. So adaptive cruise control, where you have your cruise set, you approach someone too fast, it slows you down.
Yeah.
And so the AI and the technology that's used there isn't designed to replace the human. It's designed to assist the person.
Yeah.
So it's being built in slow steps. I mean, the first step was a cruise that just kept you at the right speed.
Yeah.
Now it slows you down if you're about to hit something. So it's slowly being built up. And the advantage of that is that we know that it's going to work because it's been tested so often, because it's been implemented very, very slowly.
There are side effects to the technology that's put into highway tractors.
Yeah.
That the side effects being that it allows for distracted driving way more so than without it.
So the question is it allowing for distracted driving, or are these people going to be distracted anyway and now it's helping?
Yeah, it's what comes first, the chicken or the egg? That's, I think, almost entirely dependent on the driver himself.
So if we take it back to the cruise control, are people texting and driving more now that they don't have to worry about rear-ending someone? Or are they texting and driving at the same amount? Now we just know they won't rear-end someone if they have the cruise set.
That's a good point.
A good
it could go either way.
Question. Yeah. That's a fascinating topic. I'm not a big believer that autonomous trucks are going to be able to be fully I think Russia will be the last country to have autonomous drivers, and Canada will be the second last because there's just far too many variables, and it's not safe.
There's certain things they will be able to do, but there's also certain situations that, as far as I can see, they'll never work. So adaptive cruise control and like lane departure, so if your vehicle keeps you in your lane.
Yeah.
That only works if you have lines on the road. So good luck using that on gravel or on ice roads. It's not going to work because how do you know what your lane is?
Or snowdrifts.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, they could do it by GPS, I guess.
Now, that's only accurate within 6 feet.
6 feet? I thought it was 6 inches.
I think it's about 6 feet.
Ooh.
And so
I guess it depends on the provider too. But I think for vehicles, it's not accurate enough yet. Is my understanding.
Say it's 6 feet.
And you're a provider. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Wham! Anyway.
But I think drivers are very safe in the sense that I haven't looked at all of them, but replacing a driver completely, I don't see that happening anytime
Not
soon.
in my generation. Maybe in some other generation. My generation, yeah.
So say you have someone whose job it is to move trailers around the yard. That you could replace with machine.
Yeah.
Because it's going slow. It can detect not to hit anyone. If you have a GPS in each one of your trailers, you send it to the trailer, it pulls it into the shop or whatever.
Yeah.
That could all be done because that's very simple. Where it's not going to work is, anything that's more complicated.
too many variables in there.
Well, like
It's windy
weather.
and snowy suddenly. It's like, what are you going to do? I mean, I know on I-29, it gets so windy and there's snow on the road. Like, I mean, it's AI doesn't have any feelings, so it would have to be programmed in other ways.
Well, and then, you take driving from here to Toronto, for example, down Highway 1, all the hills. And, that's another huge dilemma it's going to have to solve. How does it handle that?
There's also inherent exposure to other people as damages. If you're driving down a public highway, you're going past people, basically 100 miles an hour, you could easily smack together because you're only, 4, 6, 8 feet apart or something like that. If you have a yard that's all fenced in, that only has trailers and one autonomous trailer mover or whatever, you're not exposed to the public. You can only damage what's in that yard.
You're only damaging your own property at that point. And the other difference is you're going much slower, right? Yeah. You're going 10 miles per hour. It's not driving down the highway at highway speeds.
Yeah. Well, I guess I was just thinking it may only be going 2 miles an hour, but if a trailer hits another trailer and the program doesn't design for resistance, it could just keep right on pushing that trailer and have a domino effect and have 6 trailers moved over, and it just keeps pushing. You'd have to program to.
You'd have to have sensors.
There would have to be many sensors, and I see. I mean, I don't know how expensive sensors are, but I see that that would be huge work to put. I mean, all those sensors everywhere, and but another
and
thing.
Sensors in Canada don't work.
Yeah,
we have far too much salt in our drive, and it could be it's like 40 above in the summer and 40 below in the winter. Oh my goodness, we're just not designed for that. Anyway, so boy, we keep on going. Anyway, so artificial intelligence. It's a great topic. Lots of stuff. This is a little bit of a sidebar, a little bit of a rabbit trail for the independent operator, efficiency in driving and taxes and stuff like this. But it's a necessary picture of where we're going to be in 2, 5, 10, 20 years from now, and what's all coming. It's very exciting stuff. Hopefully a certain percentage of those who are fearful of AI are maybe a little bit less fearful now. Because I think for the most part, there's very few programmers who are nasty and they don't want the end of the world kind of a thing. But anyway, other than that, have a great trip.
Thanks for stopping by Making Your Miles Count. For further Making Your Miles Count productions, call us at 877-987-9787 or download us at makingyourmilescount.com.